In American politics, power rarely announces itself. It doesn't shout. It doesn't campaign. It operates quietly, through money, influence, and fear. When Donald Trump walked into the White House, the media called him an outsider, a disruption, a political accident. But accidents don't reshape institutions. Accidents don't terrify intelligence agencies, courts, billionaires, and political dynasties all at the same time. So the real question was never, who is Trump? The real question is, who stood behind him, and why do America's most powerful circles fear what he represents? Because Trump wasn't the cause, he was the signal. In this documentary, we name names. We follow the money. We expose the networks that don't run for office, yet decide who wins. This is not a story about one man. This is a story about the forces that built him. To understand Donald Trump's rise, you have to look past the rallies, the tweets, and the headlines. Trump didn't emerge from nowhere. He was lifted, strategically, by networks that had been preparing for this moment for decades. Wealthy donors who believed the system was broken, ideological groups who saw an opportunity to reshape America's courts, culture, and foreign policy, and political operatives who understood one simple truth: anger, when properly directed, is power. Behind the scenes were figures like Steve Bannon, who spoke openly about destroying the existing political order, and financiers like Robert Mercer, who funded the data, the messaging, and the machinery that turned discontent into votes. This was not chaos. This was coordination. Trump became the voice, but the message and the money were already in place. One of the most powerful forces behind Trump was not political at all. It was ideological. The evangelical right didn't support Trump because of who he was. They supported him because of what he could deliver. For decades, conservative religious networks had one primary objective: control the courts. Through organizations like Federalist Society, judicial lists were prepared long before Trump took office. Judges were vetted. Ideology was tested. Loyalty was measured. Trump didn't choose the judges. The system chose them for him. In return, he delivered something no Republican president had achieved at that scale: a Supreme Court reshaped for a generation. To his supporters, this was faith rewarded. To his critics, it was a hostile takeover of American democracy. Either way, the result was the same: power locked in long after Trump would leave office. Beyond domestic politics, another powerful alliance shaped Trump's decisions: the pro-Israel lobby and influential donors in the Middle East. Trump's policies in Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and Iran were not surprises. They were the result of decades of lobbying, strategy, and strategic financing. Figures like Sheldon Adelson poured millions into campaigns, ensuring that their priorities would become national policy. Organizations like American Israel Public Affairs Committee worked tirelessly behind the scenes, shaping messaging, influencing lawmakers, and framing public opinion. To critics, this looked like outsized influence. To supporters, it looked like America reclaiming its place in the world. Either way, Trump became the face, the man who executed strategies set long before he even declared his candidacy. Behind every viral tweet, every sharply targeted ad, and every seemingly spontaneous rally, there was a method, a digital engine designed to turn frustration into votes. Companies like Cambridge Analytica collected millions of data points on American voters. Every post liked, every article shared, every fear, every hope, mapped, measured, and weaponized. Steve Bannon understood it perfectly. Emotion drives behavior, and fear drives urgency. Anger could be coded, discontent could be predicted, loyalty could be manufactured. Trump became not just a candidate, but the signal in a vast network, the visible face of a machine that had been quietly built to mobilize millions. This was not coincidence. This was strategy. And the consequences? They reshaped how elections would be fought, forever. Trump wasn't just a president, he was a disruption, a challenge to a system that had grown comfortable, predictable, and controlled. Agencies like CIA and FBI, along with entrenched bureaucracies, didn't just disagree with him, they feared him. He exposed internal conflicts, he questioned long-standing policies, he bypassed protocols that others spent decades building. For the first time, powerful institutions faced a leader willing to confront them head-on. And that threat, real or perceived, made every move he made a spectacle of tension. Trump's audacity wasn't reckless, it was intentional, and it revealed the fault lines of American power like never before. Trump's battles weren't limited to American politics. His presidency was defined by economic warfare, tariffs, sanctions, and trade wars that shook global markets and challenged decades of international norms. Countries like China, Mexico, and even close allies faced unprecedented pressure as Trump wielded the economy like a weapon. But these moves were never random. They were aligned with the interests of powerful domestic and international actors who stood to gain from disruption. Wealthy industrialists and financial networks saw opportunity in chaos. American manufacturers, energy companies, and defense contractors benefited directly from his tariffs and policies. Investors who backed Trump anticipated shifts in global supply chains that would favor their portfolios. Meanwhile, foreign policy decisions, from Middle Eastern alliances to sanctions on adversaries, often reinforced the goals of key lobbying groups, including American Israel Public Affairs Committee, who leveraged these policies to strengthen strategic positions abroad. In essence, Trump's economic battles were a masterclass in controlled disruption, a presidency shaped not just by ideology or rhetoric, but by a calculated alignment of money, power, and policy. And for those who funded and guided him, the results were clear. Markets shifted, rivals weakened, and the networks behind him solidified their influence, long after the media spotlight moved on. To understand Trump, you have to understand the people who follow him, not just what they think, but what they feel. Millions were drawn to his rallies, to his tweets, and to his rhetoric, even when it sparked controversy or scandal. It wasn't charisma alone, it was a carefully directed emotion: anger, fear, frustration. Behind the scenes, political operatives and data strategists turned raw emotion into political power. Every message, every post, every carefully crafted outrage was designed to resonate with real frustrations in the electorate. Trump became the visible symbol of millions' anger, but the real force was the network of influence behind him, the donors, the strategists, and the media channels that knew how to turn emotion into action. In other words, Trump was not the source of the power. He was the signal. The energy came from the audience, and it was harnessed, shaped, and directed by an invisible engine that few outside the campaign truly understood. Trump was never the true source of power. The real force lay in the networks, the money, and the emotions he channeled, shaping a nation long after his spotlight faded.